So I have my book specialist, Sandi Masori, as you can see here today. She's going to help us with all things books, and then I will help you figure out my story. In fact, I'm going to start with my story. So Sandi, when did we launch my book? 2022? Last year?
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was last year. I had been told so many times I should write a book. And I, like you, probably thought to myself, no. Do you know how big of a project that is? And I was thinking to myself, I have to sit down and I have to type every single word. And then I got to get professional editors. And then I got to do this. I got to do that. And I don't even know how to take words and turn it actually into a real book and then put it on platforms that people could buy. Like there's a whole process to it. I just had my expertise in my head. So I wrote out the book. When I realized I was listening to podcast episodes about writing books to try to get this idea and concepts and reality to come to pass. And one of the episodes, I don't remember who it was, but they said, oh, you can actually record your chapters, like voice talk into a Zoom call, just you hit record and you start talking about writing your chapter and then take your audio and convert it into a written word with something like otter.ai. There's a whole bunch of different platforms out there, including rev.com too. They'll take an audio, like 45 minutes, an hour long audio, you'll upload it into their software, and then in a minute later, I kid you not, a minute later, it will have the entire thing transcribed. Now you're going to get all the ums and the ahs and the things that we say naturally in there. So you have to go back through it, which is what I did. And then luckily I have a master grammar specialist on my team, Kelly. So Kelly was able to then take it and make it to the next level. And then I didn't know Sandi at the time. So I was like, okay, we've got the book written now. How the heck do I get it into a book? So I asked a couple different mastermind groups that I was in for people. I asked people like, hey, what do you guys know about this? So they sent me, I can't even remember the publishing company, but one of them sent me to a publishing house. Like, I don't know. What are some houses called, Sandi?
Like a hybrid or traditional publisher?
We'll talk about that later. Anyways,
Yeah.
they sent me to this thing. I gave them a phone call. And of course, their sales rep is immediately giving me the sales pitch.
Oh, there's a hybrid publisher, yeah.
And I think what the deal was that I got like 50% of the proceeds. They took care of the book. And I was, okay, that sounds great to me. 50%, I have what I thought was full rights to the book. Turned out I was wrong. So they sent me the contract. I signed the contract. I send it back off. And then we start the process. And as I started the process, they emailed me and had me fill out some application or some form in which I had to identify what my cover was. So I had to create a cover. I had to create the back of, there were so many different pieces of it that I was like, I don't know how to do this. So then I started reaching out to more people. And I thought, I'm paying them to create this book for me, and yet I'm having to do all the work. They're just literally making it into a book and turning it onto a platform. Like I don't get what I was paid for. And then the book was going underneath their name, so then they had access. It was going to be a hot mess. Let me just tell you that. Thank goodness somebody else. I think it was you, Sandi. I think you reached out to me personally. I was like, hey, this is what I do. Let's jump on a call and see. Thank goodness I had never actually sent my transcript of my book to them. They'd asked for it numerous times, and it was just that feeling in your gut where it's like, don't do it. Don't send your transcript. Don't send your transcript. So I never did. So I still have my transcript in my hands. And I went back to them after talking to Sandi and realizing I was doing all this wrong. And she could help me do it the right way, where I had complete control, complete access to my book. No matter what happened to it, I was in control of it. And then she would actually create the cover and other things that I didn't know how to do. So, funny story. I went back, which is something that I rarely do and I rarely recommend. But in this case, I asked them if I could cancel the contract. And I said, the book is not going to become a reality very soon. I need it out of that contract. Okay, y'all. Anybody else been in a situation where it's just like, I need out of that contract? It's like, gratefully, I was able to get out of it. They reimbursed me as I had never sent my transcript over, and I started working with Sandi. That was a big, smart move. So, Sandi, how do you like that intro?
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know all of the backstory there. So I just know, I came in and we started with the cover and started doing everything and moved through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that's
Emily's,
really
follow
interesting.
your gut for
The
sure.
trials you had before.
And it was probably a good, I don't know, 6 months.
Wow.
And then I met with you. We like 2 months later, it's in a book and on Amazon, and we're rolling.
Yeah.
And I think we rolled even faster because I was going on national TV on the list, and I thought, we could pair the book launching with this national show that I was going to be on and see if we got any traction from it. I don't know if we ever did, but it was a cool idea.
Well, I mean, it's hard to measure any one appearance. It's the cumulative effect, right? And it's the cumulative effect of building your platform with all those pieces, your media appearances, your business authority book, your podcasts, your podcast appearances, all of these things. Keep putting your name out there, keep reminding people that you're the expert in the field, and keep giving you, more and more to build your platforms on a better foundation.
Yeah,
So
and I want
it's
to
hard to
reiterate.
measure any one drop in the bucket.
I want to reiterate what you just said because if you go on to Amazon, guys, this is so funny to me. I think it's hilarious, actually. You go on to Amazon and you'll pull up the reviews of my book, Why Are My Labs Normal? And there will be some reviews that say, you can learn all this from her podcast. And I'm like, no, duh, you can. It's the beauty of multiple lead generators. That's what it is. In fact, some of the podcast episodes were the audible recordings of the chapters of the book. So you can multiply your expertise across so many different platforms, so many different avenues. And then it's just, again, like Sandi said, you're showing up everywhere. Like people pull up their social media, you're there. They pull up Amazon, you're there. Like they pull up the podcast episode, you're there. Like you're in their mind all the time. And as they say, it takes 7 reaches to actually get a conversion. So
Sorry, I wanted to just for a second talk about the couple different types of books, and
yeah, let's
specifically
dive in.
what we're focusing on. So there's lots of different kinds of books, right? You can write a novel, you can write a memoir, you can write a biography. There's any number of books, but really what we're talking about here is the business authority book. And the purpose of that book is to set you up as an expert in your field, to add, as we were talking about, to your expert platform, to build that foundation, and to keep putting it out there to your potential clients. I'm the expert, right? You're literally getting the opportunity to whisper into their ear. So like Kylie said, I mean, the 2 things that we're going to be talking about today are doing your own solo book and doing a multi-author book. And the multi-author book that we're talking about is different than if you were in the book that we just did with, beyond healing beyond the diagnosis. It's different in that this other multi-author book will have your name on the cover. You will be listed with Amazon. And that's why we've limited it to, just a few people per book, so that we can make sure that we're well within the limits of what we can put on the cover and what we can list as a co-author with Amazon, which means you're searchable, right? Somebody's out there looking for you. They're going to find this. And of course, Amazon being the #1 buyer's engine in the world, things on Amazon tend to rank pretty high. So it really gives you that gravitas. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, so that when we go forward and we're talking about the book and how it can help your business, we're really clear that we're talking about that business authority book right now.
Now let's get into actually how to start writing that chapter.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is how do we just start?
Right. Yes. And that's a big question. And what Kylie was just talking about recording, is a great way to do it. I mean, first of all, you just want to start with an outline or a brain dump or whatever, right? Get everything out of your head. After that, you can go through, you can organize it. You can decide, do these things go together? Is this one book? Is this 7 books? Where do what's the hierarchy? But first, you need to just get it out of your head. And then once you've done that, then, let's say, I mean, especially for a business authority book, a great way to do it is to do questions and answers, right? Write down the 10 questions you get asked all the time. You know them off the top of your head. Every single client you talk to, every single patient you talk to has these same questions. And then write down the questions that you wish people would ask you, right? The things they don't know enough to ask. And this is a great framework for a business authority book, because then all you need to do is answer those questions. And if you do like what Kylie suggested, that you record it, or answer them as if you're talking to a good friend, right? Then that's going to help keep your tone very conversational, rather than getting into that jargon and medical speak that your patients probably don't understand, right? You're not writing this for other practitioners. You're writing this for your target customer, your target client.
I'm going
So
to give them an example here.
yeah.
When you're talking about 10 questions you always get asked versus 10 questions you wished you got asked, and you'll notice in the very first chapter of my book, Why My Lab is Normal, the chapter is called Stop Chasing Diagnosis, or something like that. I haven't read it in a while. But it was because it's my biggest pet peeve. It drives me crazy when people are like, well, do you have a protocol for their POTS? Do you treat fibromyalgia? Do you, like whatever the name of it is? I don't care. And it was like getting that idea past people. I don't care what your diagnosis is. I don't care what your symptoms are. Give me your blood work. Because I'm going to identify inside your blood work how to go from an unhealthy individual to a healthy person. And that's exactly what the first chapter is. So when we're thinking about starting, what drives you crazy? Answer the thing that drives you crazy. And that can be your first chapter. So there you go. Chapter's already written. What drives you crazy?
And if you haven't read Kylie's labs book, Why Are My Labs Normal? It is a perfect example of how to weave together a book that incorporates, your case studies and, kind of presenting your argument, your thought, and then the case studies. I mean, I think I was looking through it yesterday, and I think that Kylie did a masterful job with it. So if you kind of look at that as a guide as well, it's a great way to write it.
There's this book too that we just volume 1 here with the co-authors. I'm writing the first chapters on all these co-author books because I'm grabbing their attention fast, and that's the whole point of it, right? So here's the first chapter title. It's You've Been Lied To. We've been lied to, right? And it literally says, we've been lied to. We've been made to believe we should chase a diagnosis. We've been made to think that a diagnosis is an answer. It's a lie. Again, my pet peeve being answered inside the chapter. So how do you get started? Think about questions you get asked. Think about questions you wished you got asked. And then you could even think about your pet peeves and turn those pet peeves into chapters in the book.
Yes.
I'm a little animated because I'm passionate about this stuff.
You can also interview people that you respect, right? There's another way to maybe you're starting out, maybe you don't have a lot of case studies. You can interview people that you respect from the field, and that will give you that kind of lent authority, if you will, that you get to stand on their shoulders.
My answer to that is you have your story, and you have the reason why you do what you do. And you might be, so say I work with a lot of, nurse practitioners who are leaving Western medicine and joining the functional medicine world, or I've got an acupuncturist in my programs who wants to add in the blood work to her expertise. And she's like, well, I don't really do the blood work yet. I don't have any stories for that. That's okay. She has tons of stories with acupuncture and treating patients. So don't underestimate your experiences, because people want you. They want your journey. They want to know what you did, how you got to where you got. So then that next thing would be step number 1 would be brain dump, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to create step number 2. You're going to take that brain dumping and you're going to start with an outline.
Or not an outline. I mean, you could just organize it, right? Different people do it differently. Not everybody
That's true.
not
I never
everybody
wrote a
thinks
single outline in my
linearly
book.
that they have an outline, but you do want to organize it into topics. Because even if you're writing or recording those topics out of order, you do want to know what goes together. Let's say, for example, I'm writing a book about writing a book, right? And some of the things that I'm talking about might be pre-writing. Some of the things might be after publishing, right? So I might dump all of these things on a page and then organize it. Oh, wait, okay. Brain dump, that's pre-writing. Copyright, that's post-writing, right? So then I might just kind of organize it into the subheadings or the sub chapters or the sub parts. And then you want to be able to, pick your topic and start writing on it, or pick a chapter and start writing on it. You don't necessarily need to do it linearly. In the editing process, you can combine them into the right order. Yeah. So if you're a person who works better with, high organization and outline, then do it that way. If you're a person who works better, like, for example, picking a topic out of a candy bowl and doing that topic that day, then do it that way. However works to get it out of your head and into the paper so that it can then be, edited and organized and put together.
Here's the thing with perfectionism. You got to kick it out the window. And the way you're going to do this when you go to write your book, because you all should be an author of some sort. Think about one person and speak to that one person as you write.
Right. So maybe it's your best friend. Maybe it's your best friend's daughter that's coming to you and trying to ask for some advice. And you're trying to, let them know what they need to know. If you kind of can picture that one person, or think of your very best patient, your favorite patient, and if you can talk to that person, it'll help you stay away from the medical speak, right? It's really different than talking to a group of your colleagues.
Yeah. So just think about that one person, that one conversation that if you had a listening ear for 30 minutes, that they just shut up and listen to you, what would you say? And have that conversation where a 10-year-old can understand it. And that's the next thing that we want to get into, is how to write to where people can actually understand it and want to read it and want to recommend it. So once you've got your brain dump, you're going on, again, I wrote here that these questions you could turn into chapters, literally.
And that's a super, super easy and fast way to get a book that, to your readers, to your patients, to your target customers, will be very valuable and save you time, right? You're pre-training them and saving yourself time from having to answer the same thing over and over and over. It's right there in your book.
Yes, and you could take that audio recording and put it onto YouTube as a YouTube video or as a podcast episode or as a reel. I mean, you could take this content and put it so many different places. Step 2, just so you guys know, my outline of my book was 1, the pet peeve. So I answered that in chapter 1, and then I just got into the blood work, and I just went through the CBC, the metabolic panel, the lipid panel, the thyroid panel. Actually, I don't think I went in the thyroid panel because it's complicated. And then I knew that a lot of people always ask about autoimmune. So I ended with an AI chapter. Now, does it fit in there? You can kind of say it doesn't fit in there, but people have questions about it. So I wrote a chapter on autoimmune.
Right. And
that could be your simple outline.
If I had to like diagram your chapters, basically you introduce the concept, right? Let's talk about cholesterol. Then you kind of explain what it is, right? Here's what it is. Then you give a case study. Here's somebody that had this issue. And, here's what we found in the labs and here's how we solved it. And I think
let's do that again.
That's a great structure.
The structure of a chapter. Say that again, Sandy. First, we introduced
so what you did, and the reason that I sent you that text yesterday saying that I was, as I was looking through it, I was very impressed with it. What you did.
I didn't know any of this stuff. I just wrote.
what you did is you introduced the concept, right? Then you defined it. So, I mean, not everybody knows what cholesterol is, or what the metabolic panel is, or what a CBC is, right? So then you define it. Then you explain the significance of it. Why does it matter?
I would say, why do you care?
Right?
Like even on my social media posts and my like, hey, let's
Or
talk about B vitamins and here's why you care.
that's right. And that you is the reader. Why does the reader care?
Hmm.
So why is it important? And then you gave a case studies to support it. Or if you don't have a case study, you can give something, you can give an example, you can give a story. Maybe there was somebody in the media, a famous person that had, for example, uh, Jada Smith. Her struggles with alopecia are very well documented. So obviously you can't say that you treated her, but you can use her as an example. Jada Smith had alopecia, and was in the news in 2022, or whatever. I'm just giving examples off the top of my head, right? And then of course a conclusion, right? Again, kind of reiterating that, A, why does it matter, and B, you have the solution, and here's something, reader, that you can take away and do right now, right? You got to give them a little something. And then a call to action. If you see that call to action throughout your book, because remember, this being a business authority book, you want to do two things with it. One, you want to be able to give it out to people as proof of your expertise, proof of your awesomeness, if you will. And two, you want people who stumble on the book to come to the natural conclusion that they got to get in touch with you. And you're the one who's best able to help them, because you literally wrote the book on it.
Can I share a funny story about the call to action? You guys want to hear something funny? The call to action, if you'll notice, is at the end of every single chapter inside my book. Because let's be real, not everybody reads the cover from cover to cover. That's just reality. They're gonna pick, like, maybe they are interested in the CBC, or maybe they're interested in the AI, or maybe they're interested in my biggest pet peeve. Um, so they'll read their chapter. I got an email from somebody. Don't ask me how the heck they got my email, but the email literally said, I read your book. It was great. Except I felt like you were wanting me to go get this download every single moment of the book. So I'm here asking you where the download is. I want it for free. I say it like that because that's what it, like, the energy that email said. This was my reply. It doesn't sound like we're a great fit for each other, so best of luck. And I never even sent the freebie. So, not everybody's for you. The people, though, who have read the book, entered my world because of it, that's where, the ROI comes from. Have I made money from actually writing the book and selling the book? No. Have I made money because of the book? Oh, yes.
Right. So
So
that's
think
that's
about that.
something that I want to talk about with the business authority book. It's not that you won't make money on book sales. It's just that that's a secondary goal. The primary goal is the leverage that it brings you, and the way that you can get money through the book, by getting better clients, by being invited to speak places, by being able to be in the media. And again, by building that expert platform, so that you're no longer like, oh, should I hire you, or should I hire the guy down the street? I don't know. He charges $50 less. So maybe I should just go with the cheaper guy. It's a totally different conversation. It becomes, I want you. Can you work with me? And,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful place to be in, rather than trying to chase it.
Yeah, you are the expert.
So I just want to tell a quick little story about my first book. So I didn't I didn't like go through school thinking I'm going to be a publisher. It happened by accident. In fact, I owned a balloon company decorating parties and events, and was taking marketing classes, were in 2009, to make sure that my Google rankings were protected, and that I could stay high in Google. So I'm at one of these marketing conferences, and one day the speaker is talking, he's talking about podcasts. He wasn't even talking about books, like Kylie, funnily enough. And it was a throwaway line. He's like, yeah, so I wrote a book answering people's questions. And I thought to myself, oh, I could do that. So this right here is my first book. It's written to my target clients at the time, who were trade show exhibitors and organizers, on how they could use balloons as a marketing vehicle. Here's what happened after I wrote this book. One, like I mentioned before, it changed the conversation, right? And as a balloon artist, I had a problem that you guys as doctors don't have, right? When you go places and you tell people what you do, you're peppered with questions of, oh, you know what? Can you just tell me what this is? What does this mean, right? As a balloon artist, I never had that. Very few people like realize that they have a balloon emergency and a pressing balloon question. Instead, what I would get is like, oh, that's so cute. So you're like a clown? And I was doing really big corporate events, right? I mean, full stage backdrops, giant trade shows. I was even on the team that decorated Obama's last Halloween in the White House. So when I wrote the book, we would have the same conversation, like, oh, so you're a clown. And I would pull my book out of my bag and offer it to them. And here's what they would do every single time. I got to find this in the virtual thing here, right? They look at the cover. Oh, wow, yeah, there's a cover. Oh, your name's on the cover. They look at the back, right, with my picture on the back. They look at the spine. They see there's a spine. They see there's an ISBN. And then they kind of like flip through the pages a little bit, like, oh, wow, there's words on it. And then this was the question that always cracked me up. You wrote this? Like, I don't know who they thought wrote it, but yeah, obviously. It changed everything. I started getting invited onto TV shows. I made over 100 TV appearances. I was invited to speak. And most importantly, the conversation with my clients changed. No longer were they saying, oh, balloon guy there charges this much. And I was like, oh, I only have a $5,000 budget. Can you work with it? Completely different conversation, right? Now we're just negotiating terms. I'm not chasing the business. But the other thing that happened that was kind of a surprise was people from my marketing circle started asking me to help them with their book. So this one right here above my head, there we go, 32 Ways to Outsmart Cancer. That was actually the first book that I helped somebody else with. And then she gave my name to somebody else and gave my name to somebody else. And it kind of became my professional side hobby. And then after my divorce, I started to really resent giving up every night, weekend, and holiday and transition into full-time books instead of balloons. So that's how we get from balloons to books.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah, but the point is the power of it, right? I mean, it literally changed my business. And if it weren't for the divorce, I mean, I got everything that I was trying to build with the balloon business, the notoriety, the income, the impact, everything. And then other personal things kind of toppled that mountain, but that's a different story.
You still do balloons at all?
No, I gave the balloon business to my ex-husband, so he runs it.
Oh.
Yeah, so I only do balloons like, if I really want to surprise somebody for their birthday, or if I'm, at an orphanage or a place with a lot of little kids or something. But yeah, so that is the power of that business authority book. I mean, it is huge. And in my opinion, it is probably, or not as probably, it will become as ubiquitous as the website. And what I mean by that is in 2000, when I put up my balloon website, it was a big deal, right? There wasn't a lot of websites up there. And if you had a website, it was like, oh, you're serious. You're really a business because you have a website. Nowadays, think about it. If you meet somebody who says they're a practitioner, who says that they have a business, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go to look for the website, right? And if they tell you, oh, well, I don't really have a website. You're kind of like, oh, are you are you a real business? You kind of have that little bit of a seed of doubt. I feel like right now we're in a golden age of books, in that if you have a book, it's like being one of those first websites. It's like, oh, wow, you really are the expert. And I think in a few more years, it's going to be that, the next question after you introduce yourself is, oh, where's your book, right? Or the next thing people are going to do, and I know I do it already, but of course I'm in the industry. When somebody introduces themselves to me, the first thing I do is I go to Amazon and see what their book is. And so having that literal three-dimensional business card, that literal way of, and here's my book on writing a book, which you can download off my site, that literal way of right away touching people. And as I keep saying, whispering straight into their ear the things that you want them to know. And you don't have to prove that you're the expert because you wrote the book. So, anyways, I just get off my soapbox for a moment, but I just wanted to share that with you so that you could really understand the transformational power of being an author. Look around at the people not on this call, obviously, but immediately around you. How many practitioners that you're interfacing with daily have books? Probably a pretty small number. The statistic is something like, I think 87% of people want to write a book and fewer than 2% actually do. And here's the thing, I get asked this question a lot, right? Whoa, well, so many books have been written on my topic. So what? Maybe those voices aren't resonating with your target customer, with your target patient, the way that your voice will. Maybe you're going to be able to say it in a way that it clicks and makes that connection, and nobody else did. And, if your patient has a problem, they're probably reading everything that they can get their hands on. I know when I was getting divorced, I literally read every book on divorce recovery that I could find. I mean, probably 30 different books. So, and there were some that really resonated with me, and I went to like seek out, who are these authors, what programs do they have, things like that. So don't be afraid of what else is out there, because it's your voice that matters, and it's your voice that your people, your tribe need to hear. You want it to be an ebook that you put up on Kindle. You want it to be a paperback that people can buy and physically hold. And ideally, you also want to do an Audible version because you want to hit people in every single one of their modalities. You don't want to miss somebody just because they like to listen rather than read. You don't want to miss somebody because they like to have, 10,000 books on their phone rather than holding paperback, or vice versa, because they're somebody like me that's Generation X and still believes in paper. So you want to have it in every form. And I wrote down some of the other questions, and we'll come back to answer them in just a little bit.
Because I know that this is going a lot especially in our world, where it's like, well, I could just create an ebook and I could do that for free and it won't take that much time. Look, there's a difference between an ebook and an actual international best-selling book. The credibility and the authority, there's the reason why you have never seen me create an ebook. Never. And I never will. I want these. I want the hard copy. I want the authority. I want the credibility. I mean, this one doesn't have it yet, but the little symbol right there that says you're international best-selling author, because it does things in people's brains that not only helps them think of you as the expert, but it does it to your brain too. It up levels your game. And now maybe it's like you're charging $2,500 for your program. Now you're going to charge $7,500 and get it way easier. People are going to get better results because they're more invested. So think about the difference between an ebook, hard copy. Now I haven't done any audio for my books,
Yes.
Simply because when I looked it up on Audible, there's some pretty stringent requirements. I've had people even recommend, like, hey, my sister is in LA, she does audio recordings. It's just a matter of actually doing it and taking that step. But right now it's the book. And so I'll be in places like I was at the photographer's studio for my newborn, 3 weeks ago, and she starts telling me about her thyroid problems and her fatigue. Oh, just go grab my book on Amazon. Grab your labs, go grab my book, and then listen to my podcast. So it's really easy for her to enter my world through those two avenues, and it'll be the same for your clients too. Whatever
And
you're talking, whatever the normal conversations, the grocery store conversations, the health events at the fair that you're doing, like you have your book in your hands, or you're at your studio, at your, what are they called, booths, and voila.
yeah,
Have we
and think
convinced
about
you on why you should have a book yet? Because
it.
it's a great thing to have.
I just want to address one point real quick. I mean, if think about it, right? What is stronger? Like, hey, come download my white paper and my ebook, or grab a free copy of my best-selling book. Which one has more weight? So, that's why you want to put it out in every format, and you can still have it out there virtually if it's part of your strategy to offer it as a free download. But
I
it's
will
worth so
say
much
too,
more.
if you guys have noticed, Russell Brunson's books, you cannot find them on Audible. The billion-dollar man who runs the entrepreneurial world that turned websites irrelevant and everything is now funnels, he does not have any of his books on Audible, at least last I checked, and that was like a month ago. Because I went to go download them on Audible and they weren't even there. The only way to get his books, I'm pretty sure of this, is to go through his funnel and to get the hard copy. So, I'm a marketing strategist.